So as we're gathering, I want to invite a few folks to say welcomes and remarks. Barnaby, do you want to come up and welcome us to Waterfire Arts Center? Where are we? This place is beautiful and amazing, and everyone's full, but full of so much art and culture and beauty. Here you go.
Thank you, Adam. This is about the 10th event in the 8 days here. And this is 2. So first of all, congratulations to Dr. Bush and his inauguration as the new president of College Unbound. Fantastic. And also, welcome to everyone from Imagine America. We've had 3 days of inspiring and intriguing conversation, and this lunch is the culmination of all that as we head off into the continuing of reinventing our country. Very briefly, this art center is the Waterfire Arts Center. We created it as a place where the alchemy of arts and people coming together could make transformation. The show that's up right now is Umberto Crenca's show. It's an extraction of 266 portraits of the neighborhoods of Providence. And we are short 29 of the 266, but all the rest are in that small room there. And that's what Waterfire does. We also create the Waterfire sculpture in downtown Providence, which looks at all the 4 elements. And in fact, in many cultures, that's sort of a Western concept, the 4 elements. There are 5, 6, and 7 elements, often including life force, Gaia, or in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the first element is the empty void, the plane of our existence, and the place where we create action. And that's what this conference has been absolutely about. And that's what Waterfire is about, is bringing everyone together downtown in a free event in public space on the public rivers, sidewalks, and streets of our city with music, including Chachi, from all over the world, and finding that in that intersection of people we can reinvent ourselves and our city. So onward with the conference, and thank you for joining us.
All right, and Robin and Tracy, you want to come up and join me in chairs, and Paul and Millman, I'll come on up also. So we'll just keep things moving. Here you go. Welcome, Paul and Millman, co-chairs of the Imagine America National Board. Great.
Well, as Adam mentioned, this event kind of serves 2 purposes. It's also the closing event for the Imagining America National Gathering, which has been going on for the last few days here in Providence. And it's been great. And I think it's absolutely perfect, beautiful, and right that these 2 events are coming together, because Adam has been such a leader and a shaper in the Imagining America Network. And you can just see and look out at the crowd of all the Imagining America leaders that have come through as board members, champions, staff members of Imagining America. So on behalf of Imagining America, we just want to applaud and congratulate Adam, and we're so happy that these 2 events could be together. So we just have a few other thank yous. First of all, thank you to everyone who has joined us here, who participated and really made the IA National Gathering what it is. Just to let folks know, some might got a question. The IA Imagining America is a consortium of about 70 higher education institutions currently that's working on issues of campus culture change, cultural organizing, and public scholarship. And we're so delighted that this could be as part of our closing event here. So thank you to everyone from the Imagining America Gathering for your energy and for making the gathering what it was today. We also want to thank all of our organizing partners. This was a great grand coalition of different sectors coming together to make this event possible, which includes College Unbound. I better look on with you. College Unbound, the City of Providence's Art, Culture, and Tourism Department, the City of Providence's Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Department, AS220, and all of these kind of cross-sectoral work on behalf of the gathering and raising social justice issues and working together is just so inspiring. So thank you to all the campus and community organizers. Thank you, too, to all the gathering sponsors, and we especially want to give a huge round of applause to the Imagining America staff members who made this possible. And I know that Aaron Sion and Stephanie Maroney should be singled out for their tireless work on behalf of Imagining America. So Stephanie, could you raise your hand? And so many members of the IA staff just put in lots and lots of work, and it was a labor of love for them. So we just want to make sure that they feel appreciated. And I'm going to turn things over to Millman.
Thank you, Paul. So my part of this presentation, or little bit of a talk, has to do with some of IA's awards. I served last year and this year on the Awards and Recognitions Committee, and I want to introduce to you the 2022 recipient of the Randy Martin Spirit Award, and it is Dr. Herman Beavers, who is with us today. We wanted him to have his moment. He gave a fantastic presentation of his work yesterday, and we really, really appreciate him being here with us. We also named the newest recipient of the award, and it is Terry Bailey from Gainesville, Florida. I'm not sure she's here. I think she may have, her flight may have taken her away. Is she here? She left, that's what I thought. But we just want to give her a round of applause in absentia. And then speaking of awards, I get the pleasure of announcing the establishment of a new award. And it is the Julie Ellison Vision Award that will recognize the visionary contributions of IA's publicly active graduate education, or PAGE, fellows, both current and former. Julie Ellison was a founding faculty director of IA and an important mentor to so many publicly engaged graduate students, as well as, along with Tim Eatman, an advocate for publicly engaged scholarship in terms of the faculty tenure and promotion process across the university. So can we please, Julie, I know you're here, I just saw you. Hey, there she is. So we are in the process of working out the specific details of the award, but it has been established. So next year, or between now and the next time we meet, you will be hearing more about that. And then finally, I also get to speak about the next gathering. And in lieu of an in-person gathering for 2024, we are building energy and resources towards a 2025 national gathering that celebrates IA's 25th anniversary. Yay! We are very pleased to say that a team at the University of Michigan, led by IA's first managing director, Kristen Haas, is working to bring Imagining America back to our founding location for this special event. So stay tuned for updates throughout the year about ongoing IA programming and the official announcement of our 2025 in-person location. But even though we're not gathering physically, please bear in mind, not gathering together physically in 2024, there will be chances for everyone to still engage with IA and with each other through a series of programs that, again, we will keep you in the loop on as from this point until the next time we are together. And so, yeah, can we, 2025 is coming. We will be together in 2025. We will let you know where and when, and in the meantime, we will let you know what's happening, whether it's virtual or whatever the case may be for 2024. With that, that's the end of my comments, and once again, we want to say congratulations to Adam. Thank you all for being here at the Get National Gathering, and let's proceed with the next part of the day.
We each have a microphone, so we're good. Cool. Okay. And there's one more slide, maybe that has the questions if you want to put it up. So welcome all, and it's been this really full, amazing day. That's a good slide too, but not the one. That's the one. Cool. I'm really so touched and honored to share the stage with Robin Kelly and Tracy Hall, two of my dearest collaborators and mentors and friends. And as we're starting to wrap up what it means to gather, and what matters to us. We wanted to invoke in this closing plenary the toolkit of 36 questions for civic love that was developed by the National Public Housing Museum, and Lisa's right there. And we introduced it at the opening plenary of Imagine America, and it was in everyone's packets as a way to engage with folks throughout the conference. So as we start to think about the reckonings that are happening in the world we are trying to create, to know who you are doing that work with and how to make sure you're able to collaborate and have deep listening practices to know what to build from and with. And so we're sort of sitting with that. We know each other pretty well, but I was wondering if we could use these abbreviated, instead of 36 questions, we have 7 up here that College Unbound faculty and staff and students have developed and curated for today, and to really turn to them as a guide for us 3 to talk.
I can't see you.
Okay.
No. This is
Oh,
just
that's
it.
the thing.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
And so we've all seen these questions in advance. It's not a surprise, but maybe I'll jump in with the first one
Okay.
to open it up, and then as we go, that can take us down a path, or we can turn to another question that one of you two choose, okay? So, and with Civic Love, it's so beautifully curated that it starts the way to know who you are, who your ancestors are. It leads into sort of questions of the moment, of the present, and the future. So I want to open with the first question of what's one thing that makes wherever you live your home? And Tracy, if you want to go first.
Ooh. The first thing that comes to mind is books. You know, obviously photographs of my ancestors. They all kind of come and mingled in the same boxes, right, whenever I move. Luckily, it's not so many times since I've been in Chicago, but I think about that, and I think about first celebrating you, right, and some of the work that, you have been able to do. When I was still at the American Library Association, Adam was part of a cohort of people who supported the redrafting of the library standards for library services for people who are incarcerated and detained. And it really was our push at the American Library Association at that time, and also a personal push for me, because I've never been a librarian without having someone in my close family who was incarcerated. A push to make sure that we think about American librarianship in terms of the fact that, we have over 2% of people each year who have some type of carceral contact, and also thinking about the fact that young people, especially young people who are in households that are at or below the poverty level, 64% of those young people don't have books at all in their homes. And so for me, who believes in reading revolutions, right? The thing that's most important to me, if I don't have anything else, if I have my books, some I've read, some I haven't read, if I have them with me, I feel wealthy in a particular way, and I certainly feel home.
So I can ask either Robin or I that question.
Yeah, well, let's see. I want to ask you, I'll ask you, Robin, because I have a specific question for you.
Oh, the same question. Well, I was so fascinated by what you're saying about books. If I could respond to that and then sort of answer the question. Because I hear you, and I just want to, first of all, applaud you, because in this age of fascism, librarians are on the front lines. And the fact that we're dealing with book bans and attacks, which explain a lot of things, a lot of violence, not just in the U.S., but elsewhere, is important. And I just love, I grew up in a household, when I was younger, in sort of West Harlem, like 157th Street, in a house where my mother would make furniture out of found objects, but we had books. We had all kinds of books. And it did make our home feel like it's something that we had. In those days, some of the older people will know this, but my mom got encyclopedias. Like that was like your source of knowledge. And you get one every month, until you get like all 20, Grolier and all that stuff. So that world is important. But in answering the question, for me, it's people. Like, no matter where I go, I have to have my people. And my people are not always blood relatives. They're not always people who look like me. They're people who share a set of values who are willing to struggle, even if we disagree, to try to come to some sense of what we can do to make home feel like home for us, but to make other places feel like home for everyone on the planet. So that's sort of my answer to the question. But Adam, I'm curious about.
Yeah. The most common fight I think Lisa and I have is about bookshelves. And it's about whether books belong on the back of the shelf or on the front of the shelf. Well, so you're on Lisa's side here. So right on the front, it means nothing else could be on the shelf. But for me, they go to the back so that other things, tchotchkes, things that clutter and fill it, occupy the shelf. And so I think clutter to me is the thing. There's something warm about being surrounded by stuff that I think drives other people crazy, but to me is like very welcoming and dear and homemaking.
See, you actually have.
Your parents are like.
So are you saying to me that you have books and you don't have books in front of those books?
But there's books stacked in between, like the bottom of a bookshelf.
That's
and the
how
top
our
one,
shelves
for sure.
are. We got books and then the front
More
books. But
books.
the question is, what are the more important books so you don't forget the back books?
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, they say, a lot of times when you go to library school, the library is a living organism. And that's like one of the 5 laws. The first law, of course, is that information wants to be free. And so, when we think about book bans and censorship and all of that nonsense, we understand that it's using the veil of protection, but it really and ultimately always is about control. Right. And that's why we have to resist. We have to resist, for sure. I wanted to ask you, Adam, this because this is just, I was like over there crying and crying some more. Then I thought I had cried enough. There's some more tears. And, I'm always interested when it comes to remarkable people, like, where some of that is within. But also, too, it's a lot about permission and about being able to see yourself in other people. So I wanted to ask you this question, maybe both of you, but I'll start with you, Adam. Who was your most memorable teacher?
I mean, I'm sitting with 2 right now, and I think you 2 have really helped me understand how to imagine, how to work through imagination, like that there's concrete things that come out of it, and then it iterates into new imagination. The story I shared about sitting with my grandpa and my sister, that to me is like I understood what teaching and learning was in that moment, and I think I've sought out those moments and those relationships, and this has been such a sweet homecoming, it feels like, of so many teachers coming together. And you saw like how many students were talking in the past few hours, and I'm a different person now than I was 5 minutes ago, but certainly a year and 5 years ago in working with them. And I think we're trying to create an institution that doesn't have the teacher-student, but has a notion of just what does it mean to be in community with one another and always be in a state of learning. So that's my muddled answer. What's that? Okay. Robin, maybe I'll put it then to you.
Boy. So I was hoping you wouldn't mention my name. Because obviously, as I said at your wedding, and I've said many times, you taught me way more than I taught you. But when you talk about this, it's almost like a network. One of the great things about being in education is that, and I'm going to answer the question, by the way, but one of the great things about being in education, higher education in particular, is that everyone I encounter is a teacher. And I'm an old person. And so I'm like looking around the room, and there are a lot of people. Unfortunately, I couldn't come to the Imagine America conference because I was celebrating Cornell West's work and life. But I see all kinds of people. I mentioned Julie was my colleague at Michigan. Barbara Ransby, who taught me she keeps teaching me so much that my head's going to explode. So I could look around all these tables, and there's so many people that constantly played that role. But that's to me, that is the matrix. But when I think about the question, the single most memorable teacher, and I'm going to name someone, my third grade teacher, Jane Andreas, who's now a very famous educator. She was one of the founders of Central Park East. And I went to a ghetto school, PS 28, 155th in Amsterdam. And she came in there in a classroom that was overcrowded with about 45 to 50 students in a classroom designed for 30 in 1969. And basically turned our classroom into a free space in which we could sort of choose what we wanted to learn at the time. It's like, imagine College Unbound for third graders in Harlem. And the freedom to do that. And they drove her out of that school. They drove her out for that reason. And to this day, I mean, she's still around. Her daughters, one of her daughters is a professor of law at Columbia University. Another one's a principal. And she changed my life. She was the first one that showed me that a poem is not just a poem. And I had a terrible crush on her. I stay after school and I'd erase the chalkboards and I'd erase them again. She goes, well, you can go now. But she was, really amazing person. But but see, we all have those experiences. One person who sees you, So who sees you? Who saw you? Who's your most memorable teacher?
Yeah, wow. First of all, I just want to pick up on what you said, that she had this incredible impact and then she had to leave, right? So I just want to posit that. How come the revolutionary, the impactful leader is the one that the institutions can't sustain? I want to just talk about that. That's another, we're going to have a sidebar. I'm just sick of it, right? All right, let me move on though. One person who saw me early was my grandmother, Bessie. Neither my grandmother or my grandfather could really read or write. And so my grandmother used to have my mom come over and read the bills to her. And it was only when I was, in any bill she got, she would pay it within a few days. And she would go to the space. So if it's an electric company, we go to the electric company. If it's a gas company, we go to the gas company. What I recognize from my grandmother there is that it had to be co-navigated, right? And she would bring cash money and pay the bill. Now I understand what it was, is that, for her, she needed the co-navigation, and she also needed to be able to pay immediately because, again, I'm going to go back to information theory. In information school, we talk about the small world, and the world expands to the level of really good information you have about the world. And so I think about my grandmother because she didn't have a high level of reading literacy, nor did my grandfather, but my grandmother had a lot of literacy around the natural world. And so when I was little, my grandmother would call me out into the yard, and she would say, "You see the dogs eating grass? See the dog eating grass?" I'd be like, "Yeah. There's grass all over this yard. Why do you think that the dog is eating that grass over there?" And then she'd go in and she might be doing something else, and I go and I start looking at the grass. And I could distinguish the different types of grass that might be in a yard. Or I remember another time when I was about 15, she took me out into the yard and she said, and it's like I gained sight that day because she was like, this you can make for tea if the woman is overdue and she needs to bring the baby down. This over here, if you can't find a Band-Aid or anything like this, you can chew this up, put it on your skin, it'll help you mend. But she just walked me through the yard, and I could see now. And so even now, to this day, I'll get like a really bad headache or something. And one time I had almost like a migraine. I just couldn't even open my eye. It was a Saturday morning. And I was like, oh, I have so much to do, this headache. And I heard my grandmother's voice say, "I don't know if I would have a headache if I had 5 lemons and some black pepper in the house like you do." So down I go down the stairs, and I'm rolling those lemons. You're not just cutting a lemon, because you know, you cut a lemon, you losing the oil of the lemon. It's that pith, it's that white, and you get right in between. That's where the medicine, right, is held. So that was my first teacher, because to this day, if something is going on with me, or sometimes you just know to do this a little bit. I was going to the airport the other day, and I saw a woman, and she's in the wheelchair, and she's looking that kind of way, and I said, let me just hold her hand a bit. And when it came time, they were going to take her through the screen, and I said, now take it easy on her, because she's given up her old ways. And she and I started, you know, just that inside talk. She knew what I was talking about. I mean, we just playing with each other. But the person who, my grandmother is a sustaining teacher, because even now that she has transitioned, how many years ago, Grandma, you've been gone, she comes and she teaches me a lot about the unseen. And it's important for me to talk about that, because I've held a lot of positions where people say, you're brave to talk about that. Well, my family's from Grand Cane, Louisiana, and that's my first knowledge. I got to hold on to that knowledge and push that. But one person who came and only stayed at our school for 3 years, I went to Linwood High School, home of Warren G. and Suge Knight. And yeah, come on now. And one thing that happened is that I wasn't really thinking about going to college, because you didn't have to go to college in my family. I'm the first generation in my family to go to college. But we had a principal, and he came and he said, Mr. Triplett, Larry Triplett, he came, I thought he was so old. They announced in a paper he coming to Linwood High School, this bad high school, and he's 33. And I'm telling you then, I was like, 33? What he know about high school? He's so old. Okay. Yeah, because I didn't, you didn't know people's age, really. But 33, I was like, 33, whoa, what he gonna have to reach, So he came, and what he said is that he didn't care what happened. He said you needed to sit with him personally in order to graduate, and you need to tell him what you're gonna do 3 years after graduation. What? 3 years? So I remember I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought maybe I could do a little hair. I really wanted to work at a bank, because I thought they dress, and everything. But he did that, and and so when it was my time, my aunt, who was a nurse, she used to go up to some of the University of California schools, and she would do her CPDUs. And I remember, let me just write down all those places, because those are colleges, because I used to babysit for her. And I'm going to tell him when I get there, I'm going to go to college at these places. So I went, and I sold that to him. I hadn't applied or anything. I did take the SAT because of that. When I took the SAT, I went to the car counselor, or one counselor, I could see him now. And I said, I think I want to go to these schools. He said, well, you're a good student, but that's a stretch for somebody coming out of Linwood. I don't think you can go, it won't work. And I thought I can't lie to Mr. Triplett. But Mr. Triplett is the reason why I went to college. And I wrote my letter, your letter, how you have to write your essay. I wrote it in pencil on notebook paper. And I'm so glad they let me in. I got into each of the schools. But the reason why I want to say that is because there was nothing to recommend me. I didn't have a real plan except somebody who demanded a plan. And Mr. Triplett, when I graduated high school, 700 of us went into senior year, 366 graduated, 14 of us went to college, 7 of us graduated from college. I love numbers. Do the math. Right. Mr. Triplett was also one of my greatest teachers.
Right. In response, can I ask a question that's not on the board?
Yeah. And
okay.
I also
Without permission?
Throw the questions on.
Oh, no, but you want to follow up?
Well, I just also want to pull on Tracy's point about how do you sustain radical work. And I hope that we can get to that, because that's part of what started.
Well, this is sort of like, this is a question, because I'm thinking also about knowledge. What constitutes knowledge? What constitutes knowledge at the level of what we keep calling higher education? Yeah. And I was thinking about what you just said was so beautiful, what Silas said in his, I don't know if he's still here, but his beautiful response, and the way that so many of our elders, especially for those of us who are first-generation college students like myself and my sister, have taught us, and I don't mean book learning, I mean other forms of knowledge that's passed down. This is not like instinct, I mean knowledge that requires a technical understanding of how things work. So I'm just curious, and finally, my great colleague Bob O'Mealy, who really is the founder of the Center for Jazz Studies. I remember the day when you were telling me we're trying to hire, I guess it was Benny Golson, right, at Columbia, but it's like he didn't have the credentials. Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that people have such expertise and knowledge and experience can't break in. Of course, and I asked this question for both of you, how do we move toward transforming the institutions to reconstitute knowledge, not just opening up doors? Of course, College Unbound is all about that. So how do the rest of the universities that actually have these huge endowments actually follow the path? Curious.
So I was like the little undergrad setting up chairs at the Center for Jazz Studies, and I think that so much of what this work is now came out of those sessions. And I remember George Lipsitz those years talking about Horace Tapscott and that connection to Los Angeles and Leimert Park that brought me back to LA. I mean, there's like deep knowledge making happening in all those places that institutions purposely ignore. It's not just that they don't open access, it's that they push it away. My not good answer is something that I'm trying to like noodle about, is like the Center for Jazz Studies now versus then, or when you and I were at USC. Right. It's like it sustained that energy for those 5 years. Or before that when I was at UC Santa Cruz. There was like a radical energy around that department. But things change over time. So even in those instances when it's open and recognized and you push for new folks to be there and new knowledge to be made, the institution shuts it down. Like its instinct is to protect itself. And so I don't know how to keep it going even when you break it open for a little bit. And I think that's what really troubles me, actually, and what I'm thinking about a lot for the future of this school, how to make sure that we don't default to a more conservative version of ourselves, even if we're doing that work right now.
Yes. Oh, wow. I hope, yes. And we need accountability partners, right? So when Sylvia was saying, we got to lift you up and hold you up. The other thing is call you out when you forget what you just said, right? Because sometimes, so for me, what I would say is that I've been thinking, it's the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and I was thinking that somebody said, oh, can you come and give a talk about being an administrator, BIPOC administrator, women administrator, all this other stuff. And I said, oh, let me think about that. But the thing I was thinking is that I would want to title it, Come Through Stuntin', thinking about, Jeezy, and thinking about the notion of stunting in hip hop, which is different than putting on airs or appropriating or pretending. Coming through stunting means showing all your talents and your wares and your inspiration and risking that vulnerability, putting that on the line. And I think for me, in terms of being able, because yes, I think a lot about the difference between knowledge and sometimes like higher education or even K through 12 education, because a lot of the systems are not built to honor the kind of knowledge that has sustained me, which is my grandmother's, knowledge, right? Is that mother wit or that root work stuff. Then these are survival tactics. Nothing about this is esoteric, like how cool it is to have Palo Santo now in Whole Foods. That's good, right? That's our life force. That's our life force because we want to survive. And we're understanding that we have to kind of move back to these other modalities. But the thing is that my grandmother had a knowledge that was passed down, and it is built on science. She was the first person to tell me about the power of pomegranate. She would tell me that all disease begins in the blood. Some disease begins in the blood, and that you really need to look for purification. And she gave me the different ways to do that. And I think often whenever they're talking about something new, Grandmama predicted that. She said that. That's what we did. But I do want to say that I think it is important because we do know that these institutions will sometimes not sustain a lot of change or even light or brilliance or impact because some people are so glamored with the problem that they want to keep the problem going. Like they don't see it, but they really are more invested in the problem than its solution. And so what we have to do, I think those of us who are called to show out, and I don't mean show out in terms of bringing attention, but I mean to take that is within and bring it out. Do you feel me? Does anybody feel me? I just want to know I got the same, you know what I'm talking about? Like, you got to sing your song, when you got to dance your dance. I think it is important. I also think we got to break out of the West, out of the confines of the Western world, even if we're within it, because I love, like, the setup. You know what I mean? But the reality is I have something in me that it has to be extinguished before I transition. It wasn't given to me by me. I've inherited it. It's all of those things that I'm talking about, the absent referent of our ancestors in this room, how they're peopling these rooms. Look, I'm looking at, you are certainly with us, but I'm looking past you, because I understand when your brother sat down at the table, before he said, I was like, yeah, I can see. Because you got that energy, you got that light. You've come here to do something, Adam. You've come, and it is not even halfway done. It's not even a third of the way done. Do you understand what I'm saying? Oh yeah, listen. Honey, let me tell you about me.
No, I'm about to retire, so.
No. But can I say this one thing? And this is, I want to ask you a recent thing that you learned about yourself, Robin. One thing that I'm learning is how to deinstitutionalize myself. Because the container can't hold a fat, dark-skinned black woman from Watts too long. Baby, don't I know it? And if I try to make her fit in the Western constructs of what leadership looks like, even if success, because the success, people be mad about that too. What I cannot make it fit, and I will not make it fit. I will make these institutions bend to my will, not me to theirs. So that's what I mean when I say, come through stunting. Because that is my inheritance, to stunt, to flip, to change, to transgress. What's one thing you've learned about yourself, Robin?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask Adam first.
No.
Okay. It's a very hard question, because I think there are lots of things I learned but haven't comprehended about myself. If I could try to, come to one thing, I suppose it's that, I actually, this is a very public thing. My father passed February 29th, 2020 during COVID, and I had almost no relationship, and I wrote an essay about it in The Nation. And it was a real hard thing to deal with. Not his death, but his life and the violence in it. And this is something I feel like I learned about myself through him. And what I learned was that the violence of patriarchy is passed down generation after generation after generation. And I feel like my generation, at least in my family, was able to, in some ways, break it, but you never break anything. You carry that weight. And so writing that essay was life-changing for me and made me rethink everything that's ever happened to me. So it's online, you can read it. And it's also in a book that came out with Haymarket, actually, that's on death during COVID. So, I don't know, Adam?
This is the what have I learned about myself?
Yeah, what you learned, recent thing.
I know, but I want to turn back to you on an earlier question just about, like, so much of your work is about everyday knowledge making. And being in institutions, but not just in institutions. Right. Here's the question is, isn't that frustrating? Like,
yes.
How do you balance the writing of and the supporting with also the being in those spaces?
Well, let me just say this much. When we've been together for 22 years, and you've been in classrooms, we've been in so many different spaces, and it's not the same. It has gotten worse. And I was half joking when I say I'm ready to retire. Actually, I'm trying to retire because these institutions have become so neoliberal, and I mean higher education, but not just higher education. We have sort of two things going on. We have higher education in which everything has a brand. All the dollars that come in are geared toward putting someone's name on a building. Students are coming to the university. Some of them really want to change things. And like right now, not just Harvard, not just Yale, not just universities all over the campus, all over the country, students are organizing against the horrible war in Gaza, and they're being doxxed, and the university is not standing up for them. You can't transform a university if they themselves are basically doing the work of U.S. foreign policy. You can't transform a university that says you're all little capitals, and the job is to basically open up doors for you to go into the corporate world. Really? That's not the university I came to. Right? And I'm not saying universities are great, but it's much harder to change those institutions. And why Fred Moten and I talk about this a lot, we decided that the only way out is to exit. And I don't mean exit like retirement, that's one exit, I'm just old. But exit in terms of creating new kinds of institutions, right? And it comes back to College Unbound. College Unbound shouldn't be the margins. Right. It should be the center. And all these other places should go by the wayside. Because I think of college, and forgive me for talking so long, but I think of College Unbound in the same way I think of City College in the 1960s and 70s, right? Which had open admissions, which had no tuition, which had the most amazing faculty. They didn't all have PhDs. You can go to City College, take a class at Audre Lorde. Really? I mean, so I'm saying that is the model for the future. It's free education for all without any criteria to determine whether you get in, right? That's the future. I don't know how to get there, except through revolution.
I mean, that might be the closing comment of the panel, because I think that's the way to get there, and it's with each other, and it's with knowing where we're going. So thank you both for joining me on stage.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, can I say one more thing? Well, when I did my little response to you, I stupidly didn't. I said I'm not going to pull out my phone, and you asked us to give one alternative valediction, and I did. I had it in my phone, and it is in study and solidarity. So I want to end with that, in study and solidarity, and just thank you so much for all your work, and thank you, Tracy, for all your work. Just to know such extraordinary people is what makes my life great. So thank you, everyone.